This is my Traxxas Stampede two-wheel drive dust storm. I've had this truck for many years. It was actually my first hobby grade RC, but as of right now, it is very heavily modified. But this video is not about this truck. In fact, it's about another Stampede that I have. This Stampede is more so stock, significantly more stock than Dust Storm. This is a Stampede two-wheel drive VXL. Pretty much a stock truck. You got stock suspension, chassis, drivetrain, body, electronics, wheels and tires. For the most part, is a stock truck. But this truck is not going to be mine for very much longer. I am sending this truck to the CboysTV as a gift. I built this truck specifically for them. Now I'll get into the reasoning why I built this truck and why I'm giving it to them towards the end. But this is more or less going to be a breakdown of the truck itself, what I did to it, and things that I prefer to do with these two-wheel drive trucks. And some of the things that I've done to this truck are what I've learned from years of tinkering with Dust Storm. So the first thing first, this truck came about as a broken, taken apart truck that I got from a buddy of mine's nephew who has fallen out of the hobby, which worked out for me because I was looking for a truck. Now, the goal of this was to build a truck out of almost all the spare parts that I had. I almost had enough parts to build an entire truck, just the leftover parts from building up that truck. To start, I got this truck. It was broken, front end was busted off, shocks were bent, taken apart. It was a mess. So I took a broken down truck and a handful of spare parts that I've just had laying around for years, put it all together and built this. First thing I want to start off with is the body. The body is a stock Stampede body that I found on eBay. I chose this body in particular as it matches, well, not really matches, but is very close to the CBoys Silverado. They have a blue, black, gray camouflage on the back half of their Silverado. And of course, I had to add a CBoys sticker to the back. More than appropriate for this situation. But I found this on eBay, and it was just a stock body still in the bag, and I thought that it was so close to what the CBoys have on their Silverado that I had to go with it. And it's gorgeous. It's going to work perfect. Now, like I said, for the most part, this truck is entirely stock. You have stock electronics, stock chassis, stock bulkhead, A-arms, transmission. What I managed to do was taking parts from what this truck already had and the parts that I had. I put blue anodized aluminum shock caps. As a lot of people would know, the stock Stampede and also Slash and just Traxxas in general, the stock plastic caps don't hold tight. If you have a bad crash, that cap likes to just pop off, all your shock fluid comes out, now you have a mess. So, I rebuilt all 4 shocks. The fronts, all I've done was taking an old set of shocks that I had, I put 35 weight up front, got the blue aluminum cap, and then the rear, I had a full set of rear shocks of the Proline. Proline is what I have on that truck. Those are the Proline Power Strokes. Completely different ball game compared to the Traxxas big bore shocks, which are aluminum bodied and nitrogen coated shafts. Way stronger than stock, and with the aluminum shock cap that it actually comes with when I put the blue on there, kind of really puts the truck together, especially with the body being blue. So like I said, we have 35 weight shock oil up front, 40 weight shock oil in the rear. In my Stampede, I have the Proline Power Stroke shocks with completely different shock fluid and springs in it, as they're, better shocks than these are. But I didn't always run those Power Strokes. I run just like these. So 35 up front, 40 in the rear really gives a nice feel to this truck, especially when you're driving it. I did not put very much preload in the springs, as I want the truck to be able to cycle even over the small stutters. And especially under acceleration, the rear end can squat, the truck can take off, and it's good. Especially when you drop the wheelie bar down, it'll take off, and it takes off really nice. Another thing I did, especially in regards to the body, are these Traxxas adjustable body posts. Now, the huge benefit of these is especially the rear. It's a flat platform, which for these truck bodies is a big thing. For the people who know, the stock body mounts for these Stampedes are just posts. So just like the front, but on the rear. And if you crash, it punched right through the Lexan body like it's nothing. And with this body, I didn't want them punching through. And initially I had an idea of getting a Proline Ford Raptor body for this truck, as Ben from the CBoys has a Ford Raptor. But after I saw him wrap his truck in a brushed look, I realized that that was going to be a very difficult paint job to do. So that's when I found this body on eBay, which is very nice. It worked out really nice, especially with this whole blue theme going on. And like I said, it matches their Silverado pretty well. Overall, the truck got a complete rebuild from front to back. I took the entire truck apart, did everything. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any broken screws, rusted screws. I completely rebuilt the transmission, brand new transmission case, same gears, fresh gear grease, and just made sure that everything was ready to be abused. I don't know what the CBoys are going to be doing with it. It could be a shelf queen, or it could be run into the ground. It's going to be theirs, and I hope they like it. Plastic drive shafts, oddly enough, even though my truck Dust Storm is a lot more powerful than the VXL, I still run plastic shafts. I've actually broken the Proline steel shafts that I had on it, so I just went back to plastic, and I haven't broken them yet. Now, with that, driver error is one of the reasons why they break. It's probably why those steel ones broke, honestly. But this truck is going to have plastic for now. They can do what they please. But I also am including an extra set of plastic drive shafts. In case they decide to take it out, rip it around, and snap them, and replace it pretty easy. Another thing I added for strength, just like the shocks being aluminum bodied in the rear, the front has a brace. This is a STRC front Kingpin Brace. I have a Proline brace in Dust Storm, and it has saved my truck on numerous occasions. Without the Kingpin Brace, if you come into a crash hard on one side, it'll rip the bulkhead right off. And that's actually one of the issues I had when I first got this truck. The bulkhead was ripped. Completely broken off. One side of the truck was just dangling. And with that, also had bent shock shafts. Another reason why I rebuilt and changed the entire shock setup on this truck. The rear shocks were completely bent. I didn't want to fuck around with straightening the shafts. The fronts were all right, but I had these shocks already built, so I just threw them on, changed the caps, and they are good to go. Another benefit of the VXL is that out of the box, you get the adjustable turnbuckles for camber and tow. So you get your steering arms, your top arm, and same with the rear. So the truck is ready to go. Another thing that I had spare parts for and that was already partially on this truck was aluminum hub carriers and the caster blocks. So on the front here, we got the aluminum caster block, and you can see the aluminum hub carrier, along with the rear, which is a little more difficult to see. There it is. So we got the strength where it's needed, the weak points where it's needed. Another reason why I run plastic shafts. They can easily break and be easily replaced. All new bearings, front and rear. And I'm also sending the CBoys a fresh set of hub bearings in case they run in water, snow, mud. They can easily change the bearings if need be. I always like to take a blowgun and blow all the water out, and I've managed to keep the same bearings in dust storm for a long time. Another thing that I did that was a huge beef up for this truck that I've done on dust storm is the Proline rear bumper wheelie bar mount. Now, if anyone knows about these stock Traxxas wheelie bar mounts, you know that the way that it mounts, especially onto this rear skid plate, every time you land hard on the ass end, it will break them right off, or pop them off and then eventually break. Bend the screws, wear them out. So this RPM, that's what it is, RPM, rear wheelie bar mount, is much stronger than stock. Granted, it's kind of a pain in the ass to put on because it doesn't line up perfectly, but it definitely holds way stronger. Although I have broken one on dust storm already, but I run that truck very hard. So this truck is capable of 3S Lipo. I like to run 2S. This is my Gens Ace that I run in dust storm. Just a simple 5,000 milliamp 50C 2S. I like the higher C rating. That discharge rate for the initial punch of power is really nice to have versus lower C rating. The truck is rated for 3S, but I've never tried it on 3S. Especially with these stock wheels and tires, there's a very good chance that you can blow it out. Now, a big difference between this truck and dust storm is the way that the wheels and tires are set up. Dust storm is capable of running the same wheel and tire on all four corners, unlike Traxxas stock. Traxxas has rear wheels and front wheels, as their A-arms are different lengths, so the hub of the wheel is offset to account for that. Now, the huge downfall of that is you have to only buy rears and only buy fronts. So the benefit of the way that my truck dust storm is set up is you can rotate all the way around because all four wheels and tires are exactly the same. So like I mentioned, I'm sending the CBoys with an extra set of hub bearings, an extra set of drive shafts. They're in there. They're there. I got a high-speed gear. I know that they love going fast, so I might as well make this go fast too. Extra spur gear, and a basic set of tools. I'm pretty sure they have tools. Granted, I don't know if they ever worked on RCs before, so this is a good starting point for them. A few extra parts, 2 extra spur gears, a complete set of drive shafts, and hub bearings. And since I know from being in Minnesota myself, they are going to love having these sand paws. Snow, sand, water, mud. These tires are fantastic. Slap these on the rear, whichever direction you prefer. and you are ripping. This brushless setup will turn these tires no problem up until you get stuck. Then you're just spinning. So like I said, overall this truck is fairly stock. Other than the modifications and changes that I did that I find make these trucks a lot better than they begin with. And it makes the longevity of the truck a lot better too. This truck is also a relatively newer truck. It's not terribly old, but it's new enough that it has the newer TQI controller, which means this truck also has TSM. TSM is the Traxxas Stabilization Management. Basically, by turning the first knob, you can either turn it all the way off, turn it all the way on, or anywhere in between. And that has the function of a electronic or digital gyro. If the truck starts to spin, the steering will automatically counteract whichever way the truck wants to go. And for the most part, you can just turn it off. I mean, it's a little more fun to have it turned off, but if you're really ripping and you want to keep that truck straight and true, you can turn it on and it does a pretty decent job. So yeah, not too much went into this truck, but a complete teardown and rebuild was really needed, knowing full well what kind of abuse it got from the previous owner and what kind of abuse it could possibly see in the future here. So now I want to discuss the reasoning why I'm sending the CBoys this truck. So I've been a fan of CboysTV for a few years now. I believe I started watching them in 2016. I believe it was the first time that they've been at Heydays, and they still had the Skidoo Summit that did the open water water skipping, and they had that for sale at Heydays. That was the first time I've ever met them, and 2 weeks prior is when I first found their channel. So ever since then, I've been a fan of the content that they make, the type of guys they are, and I've been able to meet them a few times. I've been to Turf Wars twice. I've seen them at Heydays 3 different years. And then most recently, since Heydays was unfortunately canceled due to this horrible bullshit, there was an event in Wisconsin that replaced Heydays. And just like Heydays, I brought my X-Max with and my wagon. Now, at Heydays, I was able to ride in the wagon up until someone in an orange coat told me that I couldn't ride in it. But the Wisconsin show was unfortunately raining quite a bit. If you follow the CBoys, then you know from their posts that it was raining quite a bit. So I only used the wagon to carry what I bought. But what was really cool was, going to these events, different events and the events that they're a part of, they recognized me. So I thought that was really cool. And I was even asked about my RCs, because they voiced interest in getting something for their track. Since they have that dirt track next to their shop, they're looking for something they could probably just rip around on. They asked about the X-Max. This is a big truck with a big price tag. And, it could be intimidating, especially for maintenance. But honestly, from my perspective, I've worked on it enough times, it's very easy. These Stampedes are even easier. These things are stupid easy. I'm even sending them the original owner's manual, so that will help a lot. But this truck will be a good starting point if they wish to continue with doing RC stuff. I have no idea what they're going to do. Could be a shelf queen or it could be running to the ground. But they voiced interest, and I had to kind of roll myself back a little bit because I didn't want to just end up being a chatterbox, as there was other people there wanting to meet them. I didn't want to talk their ears off about the RC hobby. But I love being able to talk to people about the hobby, especially like snowmobiling. I love talking to people about snowmobiling. I love talking to people about RC. So when they voiced their interest in getting something, I had this idea a few days afterwards to build them a truck out of all the spare parts I had laying around. And like I said, I had almost enough parts to make an entire truck. So I picked up this one that was all busted down, put all my good spare parts in it, and now we have this. In fact, some of the spare parts are my old parts off of my Stampede, obviously. This front bumper is one of my old bumpers that has seen a lot of action. And with this stock Traxxas body, I cut the top rung off and it fit really nice. And actually another thing I'm sending with them, or sending to them I should say, is this slash front bumper. Now the previous owner was my buddy's nephew. He's a little bit on the younger side. He had this bumper that I actually put on because he found himself bouncing into everything. And I mean everything. There could be a light pole in the middle of a parking lot, and somehow he's going to find a way to smack into it. So if the CBoys ever find themselves accidentally smacking into shit, they can put this on fairly easily and help protect the front of that truck just a little bit more. So they get that, they get the tires, a little baggie of spare parts, and the owner's manual, which is a huge plus, as sometimes finding good notes or exploded views of the truck, it can be hard to find sometimes, especially if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. So back to the reason why I built this. So a couple days after the event in Wisconsin, I got the idea to build the truck and send it to them. And they, like I said, they voiced interest in getting RCs. I don't expect them to just go out and be like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. He recommended it. Why not? I don't expect that. But when I came up with this idea, I thought, might as well just send them one and just see what happens. It just seems like a lot of fun to me. So that's where this truck came from. The fact that I'm a fan of theirs, they recognized me and they asked about my trucks, which I found really cool. And by the time that this is uploaded, this truck will either be en route to them or they would have already had it. So yeah, for the most part, that's the gist of this little truck build that I had going on. Complete rebuild, upgraded parts where it's needed, and this should be a ripper for them, and I hope they enjoy it.